Author Philip Carlebach once wrote, "The songs of our ancestors are also the songs of our children." Family ancestry, whether it is motivated by curiosity or striving to find connection, has created a multi-billion-dollar industry as more than 26 million people have taken ancestry tests in the last 10 years. It's not difficult to see why. We are rooted in our ancestors, including their physical and genetic traits, yes, but even more so, their lives and stories. In Maud Newton's latest autobiographical book, Ancestor Trouble, Newton observes, "The stories we tell ourselves about our ancestors have the power to shape us." It is further interesting to note how our family lineages are often called our family trees. But how did this tradition of looking at our family lineage as a tree begin? And what happens if we don't find the answers that we seek regarding those trees, or even find things that disrupt our understanding of our families and ourselves? In today's episode, we will examine the origins of the concept of family trees and speak with award-winning singer, songwriter, and educator Neshama Carlebach about her artistry, inspirations, and the journey of understanding that she has taken as a direct result of her own family tree as the daughter of the renowned and musical Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. I am Dory Robinson, and this is Tree Speech, a podcast where we strive to listen to the forest through the trees. This week's episode was written and recorded in Massachusetts, on the native lands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, Pennacook, Massachusetts, and Pawtucket people, and in New York on the land of the Lenape tribes. Tree Speech is co-written and produced by Jonathan Zautner with the Light Theater Guild. Some people believe that the visual depiction of family trees with family members on various branches and leaves began in medieval art with the Tree of Jesse, an artistic depiction of the ancestors of Jesus of Nazareth. The text on the image includes a passage from Isaiah, "But a shoot shall grow out of the stump of Jesse, a spring shall sprout from his stalk." Jesse, father of King David, was depicted as the literal root from which the ancestors of Jesus sprung. In the later medieval period, the nobility adopted the tree as a symbol of lineage, and by the 18th century, family pedigrees were commonly referred to as family trees, although the foliage had disappeared and the roots appeared at the top rather than the base of the diagrams. Genealogy comes from the ancient Greek genealogia, meaning the making of a pedigree, and is the study of families, family history, and the tracing of their lineages, using, among other things, oral interviews, historical records, and genetic analysis. People strive to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees. For many, the goal is to trace the descendants of one person. For others, it's to learn all sorts of information: genetic traits, DNA, legal next of kin, or preserving family traditions. Even more, people often want to figure out where the story of their family fits in the larger story of the world. Today's guest has had to do this examination in personal ways, but also on the public stage. There are a few rare, wonderful things that came out of the first year of the pandemic, and for me, meeting Neshama was one of them. An individual with an abundance of generosity, she participated in over 300 Zoom events, from fundraisers to gala events and life cycle moments, all to provide solace, comfort, and uplifting music to communities around the world during a time when we all needed it so very much. I met her working on one of these events and immediately felt a sense of kinship. Neshama began performing from a young age, having come from a musical Jewish Orthodox family. Later, she ceased practicing as an Orthodox Jew, instead sparking public conversations about the place of women in Judaism. Even more, she shifted from performing her father's music to writing her own, all the while collaborating with performers of various faiths and music styles. Neshama now has her own presence in the Jewish and musical world, having sold over 1 million records, making her one of today's best-selling Jewish artists in the world. Neshama and I spoke about how her unique family tree has shaped her life. Let's listen. Neshama, it's so good to speak with you. I was just saying to you before, every time we speak, even if it's just for a few minutes, it feels so wonderful and nourishing. So thank you for making the time today.
It's my honor, truly. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this awesomeness. This is gorgeous.
The theme of this episode is family tree, and I could think of no better person to speak with than you, because you have such a rich story. And you come from a musical family, your father being the late Shlomo Carlebach, known throughout the world as the singing rabbi. What were some of your earlier memories of music in your household?
So I want you to also know that my mother's side is also a very musical family. My grandfather was a cantor, and it's a whole string of amazing stories about how my grandparents escaped from Russia in the 1900s. But one of the ways in which he escaped very bad fate as a Jew was to sing. And from when he was 13 years old, they would put him up on the table and he would sing. My grandfather died, I think he was 93 or 94, and he sang all the time. He had an incredible, rich voice. And my mom had 4 older brothers. One of them played clarinet in an orchestra, like in a very big orchestra. And another one of my uncles, his name was Srul Irving Glick. He was a composer who won like incredible. I grew up in Canada, and he won the Governor General Award for his compositions. But I definitely feel like my music comes from both sides of my lineage, from all sides of my tree. And it's definitely very much alive in my children. Both of my children are prodigious musicians. And I feel very much like it's the breath, it's the air in my life. It's not that, oh, I had music in my home. I think my home was music growing up. It was filling every space, every corner. It is the fabric of our breath. It's who we are.
That's just so beautiful. What a beautiful image, and it seems so true of you.
Thank you. It just came to me. It must be because of you.
I was going to say it's because you're a songwriter. But something I think about, especially I will speak as a Jew, is that the people who sang are also very much keepers of stories. You're a descendant of a cantor. I mean, so you have that extra layer of being the keeper of stories.
Thank you. I love that. My father used to say, as long as we tell stories, we never get old. Because our stories are what gives us life. And I think that's actually really true. And, you know, as we're thinking about the analogy or the connection to the earth and to trees, it's true. Because it's our truth. It's our roots. It's where we've come from. And when we can plug into it, it always gives us life. You know, when we're proud of our journeys, whether the stories are painful or extravagantly gorgeous. We have so many stories, each of us, so many journeys, so many intersecting branches. And when we can connect to ourselves, we do have life. I believe it.
I absolutely believe that stories and music are a life force for us.
Yes.
They keep us growing.
Yes. I wanted to share this with you. I'm just going to, and you know, you didn't ask me about this, but when we first started to speak about your love of trees and this podcast, I wanted to share this little word of Torah with you, you know, from my Jewy self, because, you know, I can't help it. My father used to say, you have to have a cache Torah on you. Like, it's like going out with a 5, you know, like you just in case you need to pick something up, you just have like something in your pocket. So there are a few Torahs that I've held my whole life, kind of like the cache Torah in my pocket in case of need. And so this is one of those Torahs that's really kept me going. The amazing thing about Tu B'Shvat, which is the anniversary of the tree, the birthday of the earth, is that in most places in the world, the trees are dead. in most places, when that time of year, when it comes around, there are no leaves. It's cold outside. The tree looks sad, and then we learn that is the tree's birthday. So why is that? Why is it that the birthday is celebrated not in the depth of summer? Why is the tree celebrated in a time where it's cold? So the Kabbalah says, which is actually very interesting, and I think there's probably dissertations to be written about this concept actually, that on Tu B'Shvat, on that day, something extraordinary happens from the inside of the earth, and the sap from the bottom and the inside of the earth comes up through the ground to nourish the tree. And so the tree may have been sad. The tree may have thought, oh, everything is over. I'm done now. There's nothing left for me. And then suddenly on that day of the birthday, the sap starts to come in, to seep in from the inside. And it's a secret. It's not for the world to see. It's not big branches. It's not cherry blossoms. It's not flowers. It's from the inside of the world to the inside of the tree. And that's the birthday. Because I think we sometimes put so much emphasis on what happens on the outside and the external affirmation and what everyone reflects back to us about something meaningful. And we learn it's not about anything else. It's not about what happens on the outside. It really is about the story. It's about the roots. It's about the sap. It's about what you're receiving on the inside that nourishes you. And I love that. I love thinking that's the anniversary to acknowledge and celebrate. And so I give that little thought, that holy intention over to you. We have to learn from the trees on every single level, but that sustains me, that thought.
That is such a beautiful thought. And it's so true, even while dormant, that there's nourishment happening that you don't see on the outside, you see on the inside. What a treasure.
Yes. But you have to receive it, right? Mm-hmm. You have the job to receive. If you don't receive it, you don't receive. But it's always coming up for you. And I really believe also it's in those moments where it's the most dark, where it's the most cold. It's like when we're at the end, when we think, no one remembers us. That's when the love comes in, if you receive. We all have a lot to learn from that thought, actually.
Well, and you hit on a good point that it comes from the roots. We think of trees in their biggest bloom. And of course, I'm in New England, so we often think of trees in the fall. So we're always looking at sort of the top and the extension, but not the roots.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you start to receive Neshama? How did you start to, when you were receiving this music, what made you take it from the roots and branch out with it in your own way as your own music maker?
So only a few years ago did I begin to receive from the inside. It took me a really long time. I was in a very sad place, and could I have received earlier? Possibly, but I wasn't open to it. For whatever reason, everyone has their journey. I had to really go through incredible loss and pain for my spirit to open and to see my own worth and to begin to sing from a place that was really me, as opposed to just trying to reflect the outside. I think I spent too much of my life trying to emulate my father, resuscitate my father, bring him back, honor him. I don't know why I had that compulsion, actually, but I think if I had a debt to him, I think I've paid it. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to wake up one day and to decide that I wanted to, I kind of make the joke, to leave my parents' basement and move out on my own. And when that happened, then I think I was able to be a human and a mom and a partner and an artist. But that only just happened just a few years ago. So I'm all brand new.
You're a sapling.
I'm a sapling.
You're still a sapling. I love that. As a fellow rabbi's daughter, I do think that we see both in the household and in our spirituality and in our religious community how it is done by someone else leading. And then it takes a lot of bravery to go on your own and make it your own and to find your own voice and to keep growing from that.
Agreed. Agreed. We get very caught up in what we think people want to hear or like to hear, or what we wish we sounded like or look like. And I think it takes a tremendous amount of inner work and perseverance to push all of that aside. And I think that's besides my children, my greatest accomplishment has been my ability to surpass my own expectation of myself and wake up to who I was meant to be before I was 90.
You have stated that you believe that music is our connection to the divine. Every blade of grass, every bit of creation had its own melody. Every part of creation was a symphony. That was how they spoke to one another. And on this podcast, we do a lot of examining how trees communicate with each other and with us. Can you expand on this melody of nature? And can we hear this magnificent symphony today?
I hope we can. I think that the greatest sadness is that we are not attuned to the songs of nature. Because if every blade of grass is singing, then how much is every human being singing? We miss it so much. But I think that if you go outside and you close your eyes, you can absolutely choose to tune in. And you'll feel it. It might take some time. It's not immediate, but it is there, I promise. That's also a Kabbalah, that amazing concept that when God created the world, she created the world with song. And I definitely feel it when I go outside. Sometimes if I'm having a hard day, I just have to walk outside and breathe. And I don't know if that happens for you. It's really, really special and precious. So I think people can do anything if they choose. But you have to be open to it. You have to decide.
You have to receive.
Exactly.
I think that there's a world of to-do lists out there that I am susceptible to. So being outside can really make the difference, really, and going inward. So let's talk more about your journey. Family trees are complicated, and you've had to meet these challenges in a public way with such grace and compassion and integrity. How were you able to hold such space for your own needs, your own faith, and the legacy of your family?
So my father, Rabbi Shlomo, is an extraordinary human being who had a whole lot of stuff, gorgeous stuff and painful stuff. And when he passed away in 1994, I took over his work in order to support my family. Because if I had not gone to work, we would not have had our home. It's very recently that I've started to be honest about that. When people would ask me, why are you singing? I'd say, to remember my father, and I love him so much, and I want to keep him here. And that was definitely true. I think also to my detriment. But we were impoverished, and had I not gone to work, we would not have survived my family. We would have lost our home. And so I went to work to sustain him and hold him, singing his music all over the world. And several years after he passed, several women wrote an article in Lilith magazine talking about how he had abused them sexually in his life. And when that happened, when that came out, I was Orthodox at the time. And so when I say I was singing my father's music and I speak about the community of my childhood, it's very complicated. So when the allegations came out, it was 1998, everyone around me declared that these women were liars. They're lying. And they're only doing so now for their own promotion. I don't know what anyone gains speaking about pain. And they're liars, and my father was perfect. He was the Messiah. And so, God forbid. And at that time, I was very Orthodox, and I had accepted my space as an Orthodox woman as being less than. I am not strong because I'm a woman. I'm deficient because I'm a woman. I said, Shelo Asani Isha. There was a blessing that you say. Thank you, God. Sorry, I didn't say it. I acknowledge that men around me would say, Shelo Asani Isha. Thank you, God, for not making me a woman. And that didn't offend me. I mean, I'm offended now as I look back that I was not offended. But that was my world. Like, God, you made me as you made me, and there's no choice in that. And then everyone around me was like, well, too bad Shlomo didn't have a son, because you could have been something. And I apologized for my existence all the time. And I was a woman who had been hurt as well. And no one believed me. And I didn't know how to hold my own pain. So when the people in my life told me that the women who came forward to reveal their stories about my father, and they were liars, I believed them. And I've had the opportunity publicly to apologize for that, because I'm ashamed that I wasn't stronger at the time, because I would have had a very different reaction than I had if I had been stronger, and I was not. So we go through our lives. 1998, he's not here. There's no trial. There's no, he's not here anymore to present any kind of story or to receive whatever justice he would have received. And I, as his daughter, continued to hold this every day. People would talk to me about it, ask me about it, and I would never comment. In 2017, and here I am going through my whole cycle of life and, my seasonal change, my shedding of leaves and fall. I'm taking this analogy way too far for you, Dory. When I got divorced in 2012, I stopped being Orthodox. So when I stopped being Orthodox, I began to spend time with Jews who were not Orthodox, which meant that women could sing. Before 2012, before I decided I wanted a different kind of community, I never knew any women who sang. I didn't have any sisters who did this. I was the only woman in a room full of very aggressive men. That was how I felt pretty much all the time in my career. Having to navigate, having to, bring my father in, almost like an invisible bodyguard. My father said, because I couldn't, I knew I wasn't enough on my own. But when I met women who could sing, I began to appreciate the value of being a woman. It took me a really long time. And when I began to appreciate who I was and appreciate them, my world shifted completely. And my relationship with God shifted. My relationship with my artistry shifted. And then when the Me Too moment began in 2017, and the allegations against my father resurfaced, I had a very different reaction. And I think it was mostly because of the inner work that I had done, and because I was no longer afraid to see that women don't lie. What does it mean to receive someone's truth? It means you have to see things that hurt you. It means that you need to breathe through your own reaction to their truth, to hold them, to be present for them. And hearing that my father had done these things before, I couldn't hear it at all. It was never about their pain. It was about mine. When you're in pain, it's really hard to hold other people. And that was me for a very long time. And when the allegations resurfaced, it was a massive epiphany for me. I just saw my whole life. I saw my whole world. I saw my father. I saw myself. And I heard them. I knew it was true. I knew it.
That must have been very difficult to acknowledge and sit in and hold space for. What did you do next?
I decided I wanted to dedicate my life to hearing and to being an activist. So I began to respond. I began to write and wrote several articles speaking very specifically to how it felt to hold the truth about someone I loved so much and didn't love very much at the same time once I started to hold all of that. And even as I was going through all of these revelatory moments, that did not stop my family, my music, my father, and me from being canceled. And I think actually I'm still canceled. I don't know what, am I supposed to feel differently to be uncanceled versus canceled? I don't know. It's hard to say. Sometimes I think I'm no longer canceled, but I didn't really understand what that was in the first place. I have respect for the concept of cancellation, because it would be really lovely to go back in time and, and just fast forward and rewind as needed and take out the sad parts. And I grew up in a land of fairy tales. So I would love to have that mechanism that would allow me to cancel the things that are hard. But even taking my family aside and my own cancellation, which has many ramifications on my spirit, I really think that holding all of the parts of our journeys, I really believe that that's what makes us the best us that we can be, the best version of ourselves. And if I could go back and uncancel myself and change the pain that brought me here, I don't think I would do it. I think I would rather have lived through what I've lived through and be strong. I would rather have had my journey and burned up completely and found something new than stayed where I was without the pain. And that's a very large thing to say. And I realize that that's not for everyone. There are a lot of people who need to avoid. And I understand why. I respect the fear of pain, the fear of truth. And I really feel very proud of myself that I was able to just hold it, to just stand in it and be in it. And so when you ask me about my journey and about my complicated family tree, I guess everyone knows why you're asking me that question now.
Here's the why according to other people and why your own journey throughout it. I mean, being in the family is so different from reading about the family. Again, I just have to double down with my appreciation of you. You are Carlebach. Your name is Carlebach as well, but you are you, who you are, how you've grown. I'm sure you've heard this in some way, shape, or form, but it's something teachers say all the time, that if the flower isn't growing, you don't yell at the flower, you examine the environment. And say, is it getting too much sun, too much shade, not the right soil? You did that work of looking at your environment and saying, how am I going to shift this? And you could have absolutely left Judaism altogether. You could have shut it all down, and you sat in the discomfort. That is something that we're struggling with as a nation, to sit with the discomfort as we speak about all sorts of things, the climate crisis, racism, like how we sit in discomfort. And that's your journey. That's specific to you.
Well, I think it's all of our journeys in one way or another. And by the way, so much of, the systemic issues that we are facing now come from an avoidance of this issue.
You spoke before about the internal work you did during your journey, and it makes me think of your story about the tree receiving sap, receiving energy. Mm. There's been a lot of internal work done. You have so much richness from your whole family and from whatever family means to you now. How does that continue to influence you?
I think it influences me just that I feel open and grateful right now. I hope that there will be more recording ahead. The pandemic began just as my 10th recording dropped. And so we were about to tour our recording called Believe, which was a huge, amazing accomplishment. It was my first recording of original music. And I had taken so much time to really figure out what I wanted to say. And I feel like I haven't yet begun to offer those songs to the world, because everything changed, everything stopped. I'm working on my memoir. I just signed with an agent, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel very blessed and grateful that I'm able to share my story. And I hope that when the book is released, that my story helps to empower and inspire women, especially as we continue on this road. There's tremendous work ahead, and we need to empower and love each other. And so I hope very much that my story will be a part of the fabric of that work. And that's where my heart is these days.
I think your memoir will probably be incredibly impactful, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Thank you.
You share so much wisdom, and just in a few minutes sitting with you, I can't even imagine a whole book. So if that's what's next for you, storytelling wise, is there anything musically that you haven't yet done? Because I know you collaborate with people of all different backgrounds. You found your own voice. You have this song called Believe, of all things. What's next for you musically?
I don't know. That's my truth. I don't know. And when you say I found my own voice, it's very gracious. I don't know that I have. I'm very much a work in progress. I'm very much searching and seeking. I'll tell you what I'm very, very inspired by, though, at this particular moment. The musical Hadestown. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, and I absolutely love it.
I am obsessed. I'm obsessed. I listen to it all the time, and I'm gaining such depth and truth from the story, from the brilliant composition. And I don't know yet what's next for me, but I'm feeling inspiration from this body of work. And I feel like if there's going to be a portal to knowledge and next steps, I feel like it's going to come to me while I'm listening to these songs. It's going to happen. I don't know what it is. No pressure to the musical.
A musical that really, really does shed light on people's flaws, what people's needs and their hurt.
Yes.
And with a fusion of jazz and folk, all these elements.
Yes. Well, to tell you in particular, like the part that has just like shattered me and opened me and then shattered me again, when you're talking about the road to hell, nothing works out. Sometimes things don't work out at all. And you sing the songs. Still you sing anyway. Still you try to bring the spring with your song, because you can't control the wind. You can only pray that if you are touched by holiness and divine energy, that someone out there will hear you and that your voice will bring some kind of healing. And even if it doesn't, you're going to keep singing anyway. We're going to keep trying anyway. We're going to raise a glass to those who fall apart and then stand up again. I really encourage all of you who haven't seen it, just at least check out the music. It's just divine. It's holy stuff. Holy, holy.
Neshama,
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I know I keep saying this, but your wisdom is such a treasure. I so appreciate your time and everything that you share, from Torah to music to just the humility as a person to say, I don't know, I'm a work in progress. It's so special to have you.
Thank you, love. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you both. This was a delight. Thank you so much.
There is a Chinese proverb stating that to forget one's ancestors is to be a brook without a source, a tree without a root. Remembering is valuable, yes, but what one does with that information is even more important. In fact, the metaphor of the family tree may need to be examined as well, as we acknowledge the widening definition of what constitutes a family. An example of this work includes Ohio History Connections 2021 workshop series, which focused on researching single ancestors to create a more inclusive family tree and exploring methods for researching the lineage of non-dominant groups, including women, people of color, and LGBTQ+ people. Likewise, the educational community has begun to focus on how to teach inclusive genealogy and family history to students. Teachers are rethinking family tree assignments that don't include non-nuclear family structures, don't consider access to information, or are not trauma-informed. What makes real family is different for all of us. If our family, and even more our ancestors and our family tree, is meant to guide and support us, then I can look around my community and see far more familial relationships and branches in my world. This is all reflected in nature as well. Professor of Forest Ecology Dr. Suzanne Simard has written extensively on mycorrhizal fungal networks, the symbiotic association between fungus and plant, which links the roots of trees and forests. Her research has demonstrated that the oldest trees and forests connect to all others. These hub trees are also known as mother trees, and they share carbon and nitrogen with the hundreds of young seedlings around them. What if we took a cue from nature and instead of only considering a family tree, invited in a family forest? How might shifting our perspective on family structures shift our paths? Where might we put our energy and resources? I often return to my family home during the winter holidays. There's a small table filled with photos of the family, each frame specially chosen to proudly hold the precious snapshot memory. I've taken to scrutinizing each image, perhaps looking for answers or guidance. Do I walk in their footsteps? Am I accomplishing as much or furthering their causes? Do I make them proud? Perhaps I'm asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking how my family lineage should guide my next steps, I could ponder how I create a branch or even a sapling, one that is fully my own, unique to me and the life I live. In our first episode of this podcast season, we examined the Greek myth of Persephone. This tale, the story of seasons changing, of people trying to grow and become better versions of themselves, of experiencing loss and hardship, yet somehow finding the motivation and love to keep moving forward. This tale continues to resonate with so many, including Neshama. She mentioned the Broadway musical Hadestown, which is a modern retelling of this myth. That's the thing about myths, be they the Greek variety or the stories of our families we pass down through generations. Neshama shows us that while our family trees may inform the past events that have led us into being, we also have the power to reroute the course with our own lives. She speaks of being her own sapling as when she was finally able to fully be a mom, a partner, and an artist, and reminds me that we can sit at the foot of our family trees and also create a new branch, a new story, a new song. Hadestown ends with a musical toast, a blessing for the actors and also the audience who have all shared their time together and will now go away on their own into their separate lives outside of the theater. Persephone sings,
"Sunflowers bloom where the green grass grows. Our praise is not for them, but the ones who bloom in the bitter snow. We raise our cups to them."
We raise our cups to them. Our deep gratitude for Neshama for joining us today and for her vulnerability and inspiring truth. Thank you for joining Tree Speech today. To learn more about our podcast and episodes, please visit treespeechpodcast.com. We're thrilled to be able to offer interviews, creative insights, and stories about the natural world we live in and the trees who guide our way. Please also consider supporting us through our Patreon. Every contribution supports our production, and we'll be giving gifts of gratitude, including an invitation to Treehouse, our new virtual community for patrons of all levels. Please also consider passing the word to tree-loving folks and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every kind word helps.